Chapter 21, Section 1. Spain's Empire and European Absolutism. Charles V was the Holy Roman Emperor from 1516 to 1556. As a devout Catholic, he spent much of his reign fighting the Muslims and the Lutherans. In 1555, he reluctantly signed the Peace of Augsburg, which allowed the German territories to choose their own religion. In 1556, Charles was tired of ruling his massive empire and retired to a monastery. He divided his land between his brother Ferdinand and his son Philip II. Charles gave Ferdinand Austria and the Holy Roman Empire, while Philip received Spain, the Netherlands, and the American colonies. As the King of Spain, Philip became one of the most powerful leaders in the world. In 1580, Portugal's king died without an heir, so Philip seized the throne and expanded his empire. Philip also grew wealthy from his position as King of Spain. Mines in the American colonies provided a large amount of gold and silver, and as King Philip was entitled to 20 to 25% of the gold and silver from each ship. He became so rich that he built a huge palace, the Escorial, to hold his gold and demonstrate his power. Philip was a devout Catholic and considered it his duty to defend Catholicism from Muslims and Protestants. To do this, he built the Spanish Armada with the wealth he had gathered from the American colonies. The Spanish Armada became the strongest navy in the world, and with it, Philip defeated the Muslim Ottoman Empire at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. As a defender of Catholicism, Philip attempted to convert England from Protestantism to Catholicism by marrying Queen Elizabeth in 1588. After she refused, Philip sent his Spanish Armada across the English Channel to attack England. Despite being the strongest fleet in the entire world, the Spanish Armada was defeated by the English Navy. There are many factors that helped the English. One was Sir Walter Reily, who was a pirate that was often paid by Queen Elizabeth to loot Spanish ships. His knowledge of naval combat greatly helped the English defeat the Spanish Armada. Another factor was the poor weather. Terrible storms scattered and confused the Spanish Armada, forcing them to take shelter near the coast. This is when the English sent in fire ships, which did no actual damage to the Spanish Armada, but caused them to panic and split up, making them easy targets for the English fleet's superior cannons, which had a much longer range than the Spanish ships.
Golden Age of Spanish Art and Literature. Artists, El Greco and Diego. Literature, Miguel. El Greco, he was originally from Greece. When he moved to Spain, people called him the Greek one. He painted religious themes. One of his most celebrated works features a contrast of heaven and earth, the burial and spiritual world waiting above. The Burial of Count Orgaz encapsulates Greco's art in that it illustrates a visionary experience, transcending the known and revealing that which exists in the spiritual imagination. Diego was the official court painter for King Philip IV. His paintings showed power and glory of the Spanish monarchy. Mainly his paintings were of the royal family. He said he had a miraculous gift for conveying a sense of truth. He gave the best of his talents to painting portraits which captured the appearance of reality through the seemingly effortless handling of sensuous paint. He remained to the court for the rest of his life, ascending in the hierarchy of court appointments, eventually receiving a knighthood. Miguel wrote the book Don Quixote, and it was considered to be the first European novel. In 1605, the book was published, and the novel marks the birth of modern European novels. In the novel, it is about an old man that falls in love with the old stories of knighthood. He seeks out adventure. In the book, the character gets lost in his own fantasy world, believing he is a knight. In it, he believes that a windmill is a giant and sheep are armies of soldiers coming to get him. And at the end of the novel, he comes back to his senses, realizing it was all his imagination.
The Spanish Empire declined for several reasons. Inflation, taxes, rebellions like the Dutch Revolt, costly wars and military finances, and Spain made their enemies rich. Inflation. The Spanish Empire declined for many reasons, and inflation was one of them. Spain's population was growing rapidly and bullion was abundant. People were demanding goods and the value of silver was dropping. Since many people wanted those goods, the merchants raised those prices. Taxation on the poor weakened the Spanish Empire. This happened because Spain expelled Jews and Muslims. Along with them were artisans and valuable business workers, and the poor were taxed so high that they never became a middle class. Spain made its enemies stronger. As a result of inflation, and Spain had to buy goods in quantity to keep up with the flow of bullion. Spain also had guilds which dominated the Middle Ages. The goods like cloth were expensive, and Spain bought their materials from France and England, who were Spain's enemies. Spain also had to borrow money from Germany for Philip's expenditures and repaid them with silver. Spain also had costly wars. Philip was fighting wars on 3 fronts. Philip was paying for costly soldiers that did not benefit him in the war. The Spanish Armada defeat was costly, and rebuilding his fleet tore down his economy. Philip's raids and ports costed him extra as well. Other problems were the English pirates that raided their ships. The Spanish trade of wool was decreasing, plague, and bad harvest. The Dutch revolt was a major factor as well. Spain had controlled the Netherlands, who supported Calvinism. Philip raised taxes and sought to crush Protestantism. The Dutch revolted and fought Spain 11 years before getting their independence from Spain.
The Netherlands is a republican society, and they practice religious toleration. Religious toleration is when the leaders let their people believe in God in a different way than they do. In the 1600s, Netherlands became center of European art. Rembrandt van Rijn, painter and printmaker who is known for his self-portraits and illustrations from scenes of the Bible. Johann Vermeer is a painter who specialized in domestic interior scenes of the middle-class life. The Dutch had the world's largest trading fleet. They replaced the Italians as Europe's bankers, and with all this power they established colonies, built forts, and maintained a navy army. The theory of absolutism came along in the 16th century when the monarchy and aristocracy started to compete between each other. 2 ideas arose from this: constitutionalism and absolutism. Constitutionalism implies a balance of power between the government and its subjects, this meaning that the monarchy would completely disappear. This idea of constitutionalism was provided by the subjects of Parliament in Britain. Absolutism represents a change from the monarchies of medieval reality. Absolutism implies that all power should be put in the hands of one ruler and authority. Rulers of the monarchy loved the sound of absolutism, and they wanted to become these absolute rulers with complete power. They also began to believe in divine right, meaning that they thought of themselves as representatives of God. They also began thinking that they were above the law. Common features of absolutism are strong armies, limited representative bodies, and high taxes. Monarchs began to gain power, and absolutism came into effect. Many things caused this increase in power, including the decline of feudalism and church authority, the rise of cities, and the continuous warfare and exploration that led to a need for money. In the 17th century, there was a great upheaval. The Reformation had led to a series of violent wars of religions. States erupted into civil war, and thousands of innocent civilians died in the name of religion. Absolute monarchies were a solution to these violent disorders, and Europeans were more than willing to have some rights taken away in exchange for peace and safety. As a result to absolutism, religion and society became regulated, the nobility lost power, new bureaucracies were formed, and huge building projects took place. This concludes Section 1 of Chapter 21 about Spain's empire and European absolutism.